This is D-Lo 404. I want to say shout out to the LDBC. Welcome back to repeat viewers and subscribers. If you're new to the channel, I want to say welcome to the channel. Please subscribe. If you're feeling the content, please like and comment as well. The thing I want to get into this morning, I'm on a little morning commute, so if you hear a little noise in the background, I apologize for that. I'm on the road, so it's a little bumpy ride on this drive in the morning. But anyway, what I want to talk about is I saw a video on one of the guys on the UK channels on yesterday. I watched a little bit of this video when I had some extra time at work, and one of the things this guy was talking about was basically he talked about AJ having such a superior resume over Deontay Wilder. And he talked about, he had a graphic of the top 10 based on BoxRec rankings, which I don't have a problem with, because I know the sanctioning body rankings are kind of like all over the place. And the guys that are ranked in the top 10, not in any order, but were Wilder, Joshua, Fury, Parker, Ortiz, Big Baby Miller, Dillian White, Povetkin, Joseph Parker, and I want to say Carlos Takam. May have been Adam Kownacki. Adam Kownacki was the other one, and I think that's 10. I'm not driving and kind of paying attention to the road, so I wouldn't count them in my head. But either way, just to get down to it, he talked about Joshua had already faced and beaten 3 of the top 10 guys in the division, which was he was talking about Joseph Parker, he was talking about Dillian White, and it was Alexander Povetkin. And of course, by comparison, he talks about Wilder only having beaten 1 other top 10 guy, which was Ortiz. Then he goes on to talk about how he don't even understand why Fury's even there, because he hadn't done anything since he came back. So he was saying that, Fury shouldn't even be ranked in the top 10. He hadn't done enough. Man, some loud ass truck beside me. But anyway, in that regard, he talks about how, coming off of his layoff, Fury hadn't done anything to earn his way back into the top 10 rankings. And a lot of people in the comment section were echoing the same thing. So just to touch on that Fury situation right away. Okay, Fury left. He was the heavyweight champion of the WBA, WBO, and the IBF, along with being the lineal champion. When he left, he was stripped of all his belts, and he come back, still hadn't lost a fight, so therefore he's still the lineal champion. But my whole case in point is, of all the guys in the top 10, Fury has the single best win. Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko when Vladimir Klitschko was on like a 10-year streak of being undefeated. Was on a roll of, almost catching Joe Louis for the most heavyweight title defenses. And Fury put a stop to all that in dominating fashion. And though he didn't go out and knock Vlad out, but I mean, he boxed circles around Vlad. And he pretty much outclassed him in that fight. So that's the best win of any guy in the top 10. And we've seen fighters retire, being active for long periods of time, and when they come back to the sport, all they have to do is have a fight in their division and they're ranked again. Floyd Mayweather, case in point. Every time Floyd had one of his many retirements and he came back, After he fought one fight, he was right back top pound, right there in the pound for pound conversation. He was right back ranked at the top of the welterweight division. I'll give this as a classic point, classic example. When Floyd retired, and he came after he was supposed to be fighting Oscar De La Hoya in a rematch, and he opted to retire instead of taking that rematch. When he came back, he fought Juan Manuel Marquez, who at the time, I want to say, had fought as heavy as lightweight. And that was it. 2 weight classes below welterweight. He and Floyd fought Juan Manuel Marquez at welterweight, in the welterweight division, because it was at a catch weight, and that catch weight was above junior welterweight, so that was a welterweight fight. After beating Marquez, Floyd went right back to being ranked as, if not the top welterweight, he was right there at the top 2 welterweight. It was either him or Manny Pacquiao that was number 1 after that. So the precedent's been set. And there's other fighters all throughout history who took breaks and came back. If that's the case, do you guys think that when Muhammad Ali went to prison and came back, he had a couple fights before he fought Joe Frazier. I think he fought a guy, I want to say he fought a guy in Atlanta. And maybe that was before he went to prison. But whatever the case was, he didn't fight like a world beater at heavyweight prior to his fight with Frazier. And my whole point is, do you guys think Muhammad Ali was not ranked in the top 10 at heavyweight when he came out of prison? I'm sure, I don't have this in front of me, but I'm just saying, I find it hard to believe that the guy who was the recognized champion when he went to prison, got out of prison after I think it was about 3 years or so, came back to fight, and he wasn't even ranked after he got a fight on his belt. He wasn't even ranked in the division in top 10. I don't believe that. And like I said, I don't have it in front of me. If someone knows that was the case, then, tell me that was the case, and I'll stand down. But I find it hard to believe, considering that he got the Joe Frazier fight. Because if he wasn't ranked in the top 10, it wouldn't even make sense for Frazier to have been fighting him, even though he was the recognized champion. So we can go ahead and debunk all that nonsense about Tyson Fury not being there. These guys are trying to discredit Tyson Fury for one reason. He's fighting Deontay Wilder. If Tyson Fury was fighting Anthony Joshua, I guarantee those guys would be saying Tyson Fury is the number 2 heavyweight in the world behind Joshua. And some of them would probably say he's number 1 ahead of Joshua, because they're tired of Joshua's antics and Eddie Hearn, basically trying to strategically avoid fighting Deontay Wilder. So some of those guys would be heavy on Tyson Fury in that situation, especially if they felt like Tyson Fury was going to outbox AJ like he did Vlad. So let's go ahead and dispel that. Tyson Fury is where he belongs. He belongs in top 10. Where in the top 10, it doesn't matter. If the discussion is about Wilder not facing top 10 opposition, well, there's his second top 10 guy. And that fight is going to happen this year. AJ's top 10 fight just happened. His third top 10 fight just happened. Of the guys that are on top 10 right now, just happened last weekend. So that's 3 for him. That's 2 for Wilder. Now, if we want to talk about the guys Wilder tried to get a fight with, there's Joseph Parker, who's on AJ's resume. Wilder tried to get a fight. That's been widely publicized. Everyone knows that. So don't discredit Wilder because the guy didn't make the fight, wouldn't agree to fight him. Povetkin was signed to fight Wilder, and this guy also talked about Povetkin, saying Povetkin failed a drug test, but it was proven to be that it was that was wrong, and he was exonerated, so to speak. And Wilder could have stayed in Russia 10 days, 12 days, or however many days it took, and went ahead and took the fight. First of all, Wilder wanted to fight. The WBC said no, they're not gonna sanction that fight. They're not gonna allow him to fight Povetkin under those circumstances. So if you have an issue with that, take that up with the WBC. And furthermore, take it up with Povetkin. He shouldn't have had the shit in his system. I mean, that's the case in point is, they have drug testing protocol in place for a reason. People know what's on the ban list, and you still get popped with this shit in your system. That's on him. That's not Wilder. That don't have anything to do with Wilder. So in that regard, that's 100% Alexander Povetkin's doing, that he failed a drug test. You can't blame somebody else when a man fails a drug test. And you can't blame anyone for saying, okay, I'm going to move on because the sanctioning body said they're not going to sanction this fight. Because if you guys want to talk so much about AJ fighting Povetkin because he would have got stripped, what do you think the WBC would have done to Wilder had he said, I'm going to go ahead and fight Povetkin? Even though you said you don't want me to fight him because he failed a drug test. And he'd have got stripped. So he did what he had to do. And he went on to find another opponent. That guy failed the drug test. And then he went ahead and eventually fought Gerald Washington. Knocked him out. So when you want to tell this story about the resumes and talk about these top 10 guys, I mean, just be transparent. Keep it 100. I mean, the guy can only fight the people who are willing to get in there and fight him. I mean, if they're not willing to fight him, then there's nothing he can do. That guy that AJ picked up that first title on, Charles Martin, Wilder tried to get that fight. He went to the UK, sold his belt to AJ. I mean, nothing Wilder could do about that. Tried to get the fight. The guy said no, he wasn't interested. The guy was on Wilder's undercard. I mean, that should tell you everything. The whole point was for the winner of that fight to face Wilder in the unification. But Martin decided to go in a different direction. He went to fight AJ. Secondly, I want to say this about AJ and this title quest. Why is it that AJ didn't go for the WBC title first? He was in line for the WBC title, and he opted to get out of the WBC rankings and went and fought Charles Martin when Charles Martin got that title. I mean, he could have fought Wilder for the WBC belt. WBC belt could have been his first title. Why didn't he go in that direction? In my opinion, he didn't go in that direction because that was the hardest path to a title possible. And he knew that probably wouldn't end well for him. So, like I said, he picked up that title from Charles Martin. And the ironic thing about that is the guy that Martin won that title off of, Glasgow, whatever his name is, that guy was actually supposed to be fighting Wilder for his title, but he opted to fight for the vacant, I think it was IBF title. He opted to fight for that vacant title versus Charles Martin rather than fight Wilder for the WBC belt. So that's how they ended up on Wilder's undercard, with the winner potentially facing Wilder in unification. But like I said, Charles Martin opted to sell his belt over in the UK. So, but I'm gonna get off of that part of it for a minute. And I want to talk about this top 10. If you have to ask the question of why Tyson Fury is in the top 10, then why are you not asking that question about all these other guys in the top 10 below Wilder and Joshua? Because the reality is, aside from Dillian White, who beat Parker, and Parker for facing White, aside from that, none of the other top 10 guys have fought each other. None of them. So you got, in the top 10, you got only 4 of the guys in the top 10 have mixed it up with anybody other than AJ or Wilder. But as far as the rest of them fighting each other, it hasn't happened. You got Ortiz has only fought Wilder. You got White has only fought Parker, and he fought AJ. But he's not fought any of the other. Let's not even put it on fault. I'll just go a step further and say, who have they beaten in the top 10? Joseph Parker and White fought. White beat Joseph Parker. That's it. Out of all the guys in the top 10, besides Wilder and AJ, Dillian White is the only other guy in the top 10 who has a win over another guy in the top 10. So if your question is, why is Fury there? Why in the hell are the other guys there? You know why they're there? Because right now, the heavyweight division is a division full of guys who are afraid to mix it up with the other top-ranked guys in the division because they think they're close to a title shot and they don't want to take a risky fight that could potentially put them further away from a title shot. None of these guys are daring to be great. I mean, you got top 10 fighters who have no other top 10 fighters on their resume. That's ridiculous. I mean, what other division is that going on in? You know what I'm saying? I mean, that doesn't make sense. These guys should be fighting each other. And if it's going on in a lot of divisions in boxing, then that tells you what the problem is with the state of boxing. Guys aren't trying to fight each other. You know, it's like whole divisions out there are trying to cherry pick. You know, and trying to strategically position themselves to get a shot at a title without actually putting the work in to earn a title shot. And you know what I'm saying? And that's a problem for me. But I'm going to get off my soapbox about that and just say, for the video that I watched and this guy trying to discredit Fury for being there, but this guy trying to act like AJ's resume is head and shoulders over Wilder's and this, that, and the other, man, the bottom line is, if you think these guys that AJ's beating is so good, for one, what are they doing after they fight AJ? What did they do before they fought AJ? You know, Carlos Tacon's best win was over Mike Perez. He had already been knocked out by Alexander Povetkin prior to AJ fighting him, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it could have been after, but even if it's after, then that goes to show, you know, that no, I don't think it was after, because he just fought Chisora and got knocked out. I don't think he's been knocked out twice since he fought AJ. So, you know, that just goes to show he's knocked out before AJ, he's knocked out after. You got Povetkin, who was utterly dominated by Vladimir Klitschko, probably got dropped 20 times in that fight. Now, probably more like 4 or 5. But after that, what did he do? He got himself in position for the Wilder fight and failed the drug test. But y'all, you know, the guys want to talk about how great his resume is. I don't think so. I don't think his resume is that great at all. I mean, it's decent. But, I mean, you got guys in top 10. Everybody in top 10 should have a decent resume. Povetkin's best person on Povetkin's resume is Vladimir Klitschko, and he got dominated in that fight. The next best person on his resume is Anthony Joshua. He got knocked out in that fight. So, where's the greatness of Povetkin's resume? So, you know, you talk about Dillian White, the best fighter on his resume is Anthony Joshua. He got knocked out in that fight. Second best person on his resume is Joseph Parker. He almost stopped Dillian White late in that fight. Dillian White survived that fight. And Joseph Parker, prior to fighting AJ, he fought Andy Ruiz to win the vacant title in a very close fight that a lot of people felt Ruiz won. He defended the title against Hughie Fury in a fight that a lot of people felt Fury won. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think that fight was on YouTube. But Joseph Parker is supposed to be such a draw and such of a premier star coming into that AJ fight that he can get a respectable split, but then Wilder's told that he don't deserve a split. He gets a flat fee. Go figure that. You know, Charles Martin, the guy AJ won his first title over, had done nothing impressive. I mean, other than show that he had power. He knocked out a lot of guys that had been knocked out before he knocked them out, and have been knocked out since. I mean, a lot of guys. If you go down Charles Martin's resume, most of the guys Charles Martin knocked out were knocked out before he fought him, and have been knocked out since. And he did nothing in that AJ fight but look stupid. Looked like he was there for a payday. And then he fought Kownacki a few weeks ago, and he was pretty much blown out in the first half of the fight. His pride kicked in late in the fight, and he tried to, put up some resistance and hold his own, but ultimately by the end he was already too far down. And so the guy just wasn't good. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I know that sounds like an oxymoron when somebody becomes a world champion, but the guy just wasn't good. And in that regard, hell, Leon Spinks was world champion in a heavyweight division at one point or another. So, it's possible for guys not to be that good to hold a title in any division. But, and we know Vlad was coming off of a dominating loss to Tyson Fury, a long layoff, and was 41 years old. If you want to give a guy all the credit in the world for that win, then hey, that's fine. But don't be critical of Wilder for beating Ortiz when Ortiz was highly avoided by every other top heavyweight out there, including AJ, including Klitschko, including Tyson Fury, and all of the other contenders and top 10 guys out there right now have not wanted any part of this man. But if I talk about Luis Ortiz too much, I'll be going into something that I probably should say on another video. So I'm going to get off of Luis Ortiz. But my whole point is, you guys are not consistent. You love to use the word bias when talking about everyone else, but you can't see your own biases. I mean, the bottom line is, if you really want to get into the meat and potatoes of it, AJ's resume, he has one good win. And that win is over Vladimir Klitschko. And that's because Klitschko is the one guy who has a name that really means something in boxing. That really means something to the casual fans, that really resonates with hardcore fans. And he wasn't knocked out coming into that fight. He just was coming off a long layoff and a poor performance against Tyson Fury. Credit to Tyson Fury for making him look poor. But aside from that, I'm not impressed with any of these guys on their resume. I don't care what their ranking is in BoxRec or the sanctioning bodies. These guys are just not that impressive right now. And until these guys start mixing up with one another, you don't know what they are. And even with Dillian White, if you give him all this credit for beating Joseph Parker, who is Joseph Parker? And then look at how the fight played out. I mean, Parker pretty much had him out on his feet at the end of the fight. Credit to him for surviving. Credit to him for the work he did to Parker prior to that. But at the end of the day, these guys are not fighting each other. We don't know how good any of these guys are. So, before you guys want to crown AJ as being this great conqueror or something, I mean, guys, you really need to pay attention to the guys he's fighting. And at the end of the day, guys are judged by who was there when they were there. If you got AJ at number 1, Wilder sitting there at number 2. I don't give a damn if AJ beats number 3 through 10. If he doesn't fight number 2, then that's going to always be a blemish on his record, especially considering the way the negotiations and things went. When you turn down $50 million to not face a guy, and he's sitting there considered your chief rival, and you choose not to fight him, and you turn down that kind of money, and then you counter offer to offer this man a flat fee of $15 million, I don't care who you are. To me, that screams, I don't want that fight. Especially when you ask for the $50 million. I don't care what the circumstances are surrounding, you know what I'm saying, what it's going to take to make that fight. If you guys have to fight in the Sahara Desert, then that's just the case. You ask for that $50 million, your promoter can't give you $50 million for the same fight over in your country. The other side comes up with the money and say, hey, we got a fight in Vegas. We'll get all the particulars ironed out. All we need you to do is agree in principle to that you're okay with the terms of $50 million guaranteed and a 50-50 split. And once you agree to those terms, we can iron out all the details. They never would agree to the money, and even though they didn't agree, Wilder's side met with them anyway to try to iron out the details. And Eddie Hearn was on record saying we're about 70% done with this deal, about a 70% chance that this is going to be the fight. And some kind of way 70% went to 0%, and everything got flipped to, no, we don't want the 50, excuse me, we don't want the $50 million now. Let's go ahead and have the fight over in the UK, and we'll offer your guy $15 million flat. And this is the situation. So, you know, I just can't be fooled by that. I know some people, they want to hear and see certain things, so they take it and run with it. But for me, when you come out and say that the deal's almost done, and this deal was almost done for a fight in the U.S., for AJ's $50 million they asked for, and the 50-50 split on the back end money. And when you let that fall apart because you can't agree to certain things or whatever the case is, and then it's the onus is back on you to make a respectable offer, and you're still being very disrespectful with the offers you put out there. I mean, all they had to do was start at like 40-60 and see what happens. And they couldn't do that. I think at the time Wilder said, give me 40% and we'll fight. So, I mean, if AJ wants to be revered as the best heavyweight of this era, he best to get busy figuring out what he can do to make that fight with the number 2 guy, according to BoxRec. And since that's the poll, that's the ranking system that the guy who made the video said that was the number 2 guy. So, hey, if he don't fight Wilder, I don't care what excuses they keep coming up with, everything he's accomplished is going to have an asterisk beside it. Because at the end of the day, he could have fought for that WBC title first. And after he got knocked out by Wilder, he still could have fought his way back up and probably still won them other belts. Because those guys that had those vacant titles, if they didn't fight Wilder when they had the opportunity, they probably still wouldn't have fought him. So Wilder still would have been on the outside looking in as far as unifying. Unless just money just got ridiculous to the guys just couldn't turn it down. And I'm hoping that that's the position that Wilder's going to be in coming off of this pay-per-view fight with Tyson Fury, is that the money's there to the point that if AJ gets picked off by somebody else while he's, you know, trying to navigate his way around a Wilder fight, that whoever is the champion will see enough money there to face Wilder that they won't push the foot around like AJ did and do everything they can to avoid fighting. Because we know there isn't enough money out there to make AJ fight him. Or at least there wasn't when it was $50 million, 50-50 split. He let his promoter talk him out of taking the fight. But, like I said, if these other guys on the top 10 list at heavyweight aren't fighting each other, we don't know what these guys are. And until they start fighting each other, they're all just a bunch of fringe contenders, in my opinion, trying to work their way up the title contention. And for the most part, they're strategically avoiding one another to do so. And I just had a thought, the other guy on that top 10 list that I did leave out was Dominic Brazil, who also has no other fights with any other guy in the top 10 other than his loss to AJ. So that does give AJ 4 guys in the top 10. So I do apologize for missing that. But once again, Dominic Brazil, who else has he fought? Nobody. Who does he have a win over in the top 10? No one. So we don't know what Dominic Brazil is either. He's Wilder's mandatory somehow, but I don't know that anybody believes he'll beat Wilder other than AJ fanboys, and I don't think they believe it. They hope he beats Wilder because it helps AJ. It helps AJ's case. If Brazil could somehow beat Wilder, then the first thing they're gonna come out and say is, "Yeah, I told you, AJ would have beat Wilder. See, Brazil beat him." You know, but I don't think Brazil has a snowball's chance in hell to beat Wilder. And I'll also say, if some kind of way he did win, just say Wilder was DQ'd, I guarantee AJ will make a rematch with Brazil within a week. They'd have a fight signed. And it wouldn't be no problem giving Brazil a split or whatever, because they would have confidence that they could beat Brazil again. But I'm going to get off of this subject. I'm just about to the job. I appreciate you watching the video. I'm moving on. I appreciate it. I'm out. Peace.